Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, in my outside studio. I love that it's mid-November. It's past mid-November. Thanksgiving's next week. I'm still working outside and it's 58 degrees out. The wind's picking up, so I'll probably have to move inside. But I just fixed my 2011 2500 two-wheel drive Suburban. I couldn't put fuel in it. So let's talk about it inside. There it's a little quieter anyway, even though I have the overhead fans on because in a weak moment last weekend, it was getting kind of chilly at night. I turned the heat on in the garage and I turned it all the way up to 48 degrees. And I'll probably leave it there all winter. Sometimes if I get a chill around mid-January, I might hit 50 degrees, but when you walk in from zero, that feels pretty warm. So, and I like to wear layers, and that's what works for me. When I get working, I don't want to sweat because in the summertime, sometimes you don't have a choice. So my 2011 Suburban, I love it. It does a great job for what I use it for. It's a gas hog. I wouldn't want to drive it every day, but for towing and moving stuff around, that's what I use it for. 2011 2500 two-wheel drive, formerly owned by the Maine State Police Commercial Inspection Division. I believe they hauled the scales around to the various weigh stations, and they're out busting truckers. In fact, when I first got it, you get out on the highway, and it was kind of a pain because people thought you were a member of the state police. Now, they probably have a much newer stuff. 2011's looking dated these days, but it has a 6-liter rectangular port motor, which, way in the distant future, might have a different home. I try to take care of it. A 6L90E transmission, which scares the heck out of me, but I someday might have to fix it, but I take really good care of it. I was looking at it this afternoon. I mean, it is dry as a bone under there. So, and it has a corporate 14-bolt, full floating axles. It's a perfect tow rig, but it's handy because it's a Suburban. So those are the reasons I bought it, specifically just to tow trailers. And when we need to move stuff as a family, it's good for that too. So I've had it 8 years maybe, and I don't run it in the wintertime, and I hope the condition, I'll probably own it for a long time. Since I've had it, it has a huge fuel tank. I think it's 42 gallons, so it can hurt you at the pump if you run it all the way down to empty. And for about the last year, now that I think about it, it was getting kind of persnickety. You stick the gas nozzle in it at the fuel station, put it on high, and it would shut off for no reason. And you'd have to run it on like the first click, and you could put fuel in it, and that was fine. Along springtime, just happenstance, I filled the Suburban up. It was a beautiful spring day. It wasn't quite, the roads weren't, there was still snow on the ground, but the roads are dry. And days like that, I try to run it, to go to the transfer station or to the whatever. So I filled it up because I'd been using it for that reason. We had a pretty easy winter last year, and I filled it up, brought it home. I wasn't even halfway home when the check engine light came on. And again, happenstance, I also filled up my little Honda that I bomb around in, Honda Civic. And that did the same thing. I still have an evap code in that I need to figure out, but that was last spring, and haven't really jumped right on it. I have to check that for an inspection sticker, and those are coming up, so also getting cold out. But what really motivated me about 3 weeks ago, I needed to use the truck for all kinds of hauling, go bring the small boat home, etc. And it got to the point I couldn't put fuel in it. Now, first I thought it was the service station I went to, and I managed to get some fuel in it that day, but gave up on trying to fill it. A couple days later, I was at another filling station I use all the time. Couldn't put fuel in it. Put the cap back on, just turned it around to try a different pump, and I already had massive amounts of pressure built up. That's a clue. And I could barely trickle 10 gallons into it. That gave me enough fuel to do what I needed to do, and then long story short, which I just didn't do a real good job at, I finally thought I should diagnose it. Well, I say the word diagnose loosely because if this was a customer's vehicle, you, being the mechanic, need to go through the correct diagnostic procedure, which includes testing wires and the whole flow chart you should go through. But taking a scientific wild guess, there's really only two electrical components. I assumed it was electrical, and you have a canister vent solenoid, and you have a purge valve up on the engine. This vents, for instance, to let you put fuel in the tank, and then closes when the vehicle's running, sending it forward to the engine, where the purge valve opens and you suck it into the engine and burn it, because apparently, the EPA can't decide which is worse, unburnt fuel or burnt fuel. So I guess, hey, smarter people than me have figured it out, and that's why we have all this plumbing on our vehicles, so the fuel vapors, get sucked into the engine. So on that theory, when I knew I couldn't put fuel in it, I know my tank isn't venting. This is the closest to the fuel tank. But first I looked up the code. There's been two, what's a good word? Iterations? I don't know. We had OBDII, if you remember the Donner fuel injection. You had a plug somewhere in the vehicle you could plug in the old scan tools, and there was no standardization to speak of because it was all new. So along about 1996, OBDII came along, and everybody has to have the same plug under the dash, has to be on the driver's side, somewhere under the dash. This is what the government tells all auto manufacturers. And the codes, the majority of the codes you can read using the scan tool have to be available. Now we could sidebar on that. You got to watch what's going on because the manufacturers continue to lobby to shut mechanics out of that information. We just recently fought and won thanks to groups like SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Marketing Association. We fought for the right to repair, the right to get that information, because the manufacturer would just as soon shut you out as a customer and make you have to go pay their fees at the dealer to work on their electrical systems. So fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, at least for now. And OBDII vehicles, you have standardized codes. Beware of OBDII. OnStar and systems like that is kind of a clue where your vehicle, unbeknownst to you, is communicating with, the mothership. If OBDII was to pass and your check engine light comes on, your right to register your vehicle will probably be suspended if you don't fix it in a timely manner. That gives government control. They can send you letters, say, hey, you're a gross polluter, you need to fix your vehicle because we know your check engine light's on. So if that ever comes up to vote on it, be careful what you wish for. OnStar is cool. They can tell you what's wrong with your vehicle, which no scan tool made yet will tell you exactly what's wrong with your vehicle. There's always a flow chart. But the OBDII codes are kind of unique. There's a letter to start it, and then a bunch of numbers. The letters mean P. My code today was a P0449. So P is for powertrain, B is for body, C is for chassis, and U is for the wiring and network systems, because there's a lot of computers talking to themselves on modern vehicles. And then you have the next number, I just write a PO, a P0. 0 means it's a standardized code available to everybody. If that was a 1 there, that's manufacturer specific. And basically, unless you have an N at whatever brand your vehicle is, you're in trouble. And the other numbers kind of get you in the area of where the trouble is. So I had a P0449, that's an EVAP code, and the two most likely candidates would be the canister vent solenoid or the purge valve. The two electrical pieces in the EVAP system, and again, I did not do any diagnosis. I used a little bit of common sense, because not only do I have a code, I also have a symptom. Typically you have an EVAP code and the vehicle runs just fine forevermore until the bulb burns out on the dash. However, I had a symptom and I had a problem, so I kind of forced my hand to fix it. I looked up the part itself, and there's two versions of these. I looked up a half-ton Suburban or Tahoe, and this thing looks like a spider. It's got hoses all over it. One hose goes up to the fill neck on the fuel tank, and the other one goes over the charcoal canister. And then I noticed there's this lone guy here. I said, you know, there's no chance I have the simple one. But I finally, yesterday, back to Suburban up on my outside ramps. It fits on my lift, but I have so much stuff in here, it's kind of tight to the lift, so it was a beautiful day. I just backed her up onto my set of plastic drive-on ramps, and I felt like I won the lottery. I got a piece of, you know, outdoor creeper, which is a big piece of cardboard, laid underneath, and this is mounted right behind my trailer hitch, all by itself. Couldn't be any easier. It slides onto a bracket right there. There's a big plastic hose that connects there, which has a push button release on it. You got to feel around for it. Looks like a horseshoe. If you're looking at the open end of the horseshoe, the button's around the other side. And it has one electrical connector, looks like an EV6 injector plug, but there's a red lock. You slide out of the way, and a little tab you squeeze, and the thing's in your hand. I mean, I was being gentle. I didn't want to break anything, and I might have spent 10 minutes total changing it. So I went ahead and cleared the code, drove to the gas station, and we're good. It only took $70 to top it off. Not bad. And that's good, because prices of fuel are dropping. So that's awesome. And it was a good day, and I can't believe, again, mid-November. I got more work to do outside. I'm going to ride this. You know, if this is indeed global warming, that's a whole nother subject. I think I kind of like it. I don't want to live where it's tropical, but I wouldn't mind, you know, some milder winters, but I do embrace all 4 seasons. If I didn't, I wouldn't live in the great state of Maine. So that's my story for today. Thanks for listening. Take her easy.